Yeah, and first of all, the price of gold went from under $300 an ounce in 2001 to almost $2,000 an ounce in 2011. So if people were trying to suppress the price of gold, they were doing a pretty bad job because the price went way up. Now, we did have a correction. We went down to almost 1,000, but now we've gone up about 50% since then. But yeah, I think the price should be a lot higher, but it's not where it is because of manipulation. It's a lack of understanding on the part of investors around the world of the real situation that's going on economically. It's too much trust in central banks and fiat money, but when that trust ultimately gives way, and it will, you're going to see a rush to buy precious metals. It's already happening now. The central banks are buying gold. It's not going to be long before the investor class follows their lead.
Three kinds of money today that you guys got to be aware of. One is God's money, and God's money is gold and silver. So this is silver, and this is gold. The reason I brought it is most people don't know what it looks like. And then there's government money, which is fiat currency, which is the dollar, the yen, the peso, the euro, the yuan. Fake. And everybody's working hard for it. It's like eating fake food or drinking fake water. That's why people are getting sick financially, because they're working for fake money. Okay. And then there's fake assets, which was another part of the fake millennial, the fake generation series. But the reason I brought this here is most people haven't seen it. This here is real silver, plata. Okay? That's what it looks like. And so in 1972, and this here is gold. This is God's money. This is what God's money looks like. The reason I call it God's money is you can't fake it.
JP started accumulating all this silver. In fact, now, as we know, JP Morgan has the most significant physical silver position of all time. So what gives? What does JP know that we don't?
Well, I mean, if they're buying silver, I think they're doing the right thing. I think silver's price is going to go a lot higher. But, getting back to all of this market manipulation, this does not vindicate all of the conspiracy theories that have been around for years and years, that there's been a concerted effort on the part of big banks like JP Morgan to artificially suppress the price of gold, that the reason the price of gold is not much higher is because of this conspiracy to keep the price of gold down, to kind of keep the fiat monetary system going. And that's not what these indictments show. These are simple market manipulations in both directions, where the goal is simply to make money. I mean, that is what's happening here. They're trying to rig the markets to make a profit. They're not trying to stop the price of gold from going up. Sometimes they're actually buying gold. They're just trying to make money by having an unfair edge. And it's unfortunate, and a lot of this stuff now, if you think that there are people spoofing the precious metals markets, that's nothing compared to what's probably going on in the cryptocurrency markets.
And I've been, Chicken Little, as you know, for years and years and years, advising people not to save money, but to save gold and silver, what I call God's money. And I've been Chicken Little for so long, I'm actually quite happy the virus is here, because people are saying, I should have listened to you. And I said, yeah, you should have.
Well, we're gonna talk about gold in a second, and what you're doing to protect yourself here, Robert. I know last time you said you were buying silver. Aren't you happy you bought it back then? Because now people can't find it.
Isn't that part of the fake? My book was also Fake Money Before Who Stole My Pension. And before that was Conspiracy of the Rich. And before that was Prophecy, predicting the financial crash that came in 2016. But it didn't come till 2020, so I was off by 4 years. Yeah. But anyway, my concern is that there's the gold market's manipulated also. As you know, there's three markets. And then there's the futures, there's the paper, GLD and SLV, and then there's physical. So the price on the futures doesn't match the physical. Now, there isn't a wake-up call saying, well, who's messing with my gold and silver? So that's what I'm saying to people. It's all manipulated, so you've got to watch Kitco.
Tell me about what your initial reaction was when you first saw that 1900, 1920 level this week.
Well, I'm surprised it's actually taken this long to get here, because the last time we were in this area, it was 2011. And a lot has happened in the last decade almost. We've certainly printed a lot of money. And I think the world should now be able to figure out what should have been obvious back then, but wasn't for whatever reason. And that's that the Fed has moved into a policy from which it can never extricate itself. You know, when we went to zero, when we did QE, people initially thought it was temporary and that the Fed could normalize rates and shrink its balance sheet. And I said from the beginning that that was impossible. And I think the markets are now beginning to realize that I was right about that. And when they contemplate a future of endless money printing and 0% interest rates forever and multi-trillion-dollar deficits funded by the Fed's printing press, it's starting to sink in, and they're getting rid of their dollars and they're buying gold.
And the world changed because President Nixon took the dollar off the gold standard on August 15, 1971. But back then in the 70s, being on an aircraft carrier, I didn't get that letter for like 6 months. That's how long it took to get to me. You know, now you guys go ding, ding, and you're there. I mean, the world is really no world at all. But he warned me that the world would change, and I didn't really understand it at the time. And but that's when my curiosity about gold and money and all this really changed. So today, when I look at more the financial crisis, it's really, really horrifying because the financial crisis started back in 1971. And the reason I'm a rich man today is because, you know, I knew something was wrong. I didn't know until 72 when I flew behind enemy lines to go buy some gold, and I didn't know what gold was. It was illegal for Americans to own gold in 1972. And I thought that was really strange. So my life brought me up to this moment. So I'm very happy to be talking to you because the corona crisis, while serious, the biggest crisis is the financial crisis. And your generation, the millennials, have been screwed. I mean, big time.
Now that's the bottom. Now it's going up and the sky's the limit.
Peter, do you agree? Can we be seeing a 50% retracement before prices rally more?
A 50% retracement of what? Of what movie are you talking to? I think we've already seen the big retracement of that original bull market that Jim talked about, where gold went from under 300 to just over 1900. I think we've now formed a very solid base, really between about 1200 and 1500, which is where gold was trading for most of those years since it peaked. And now I think we've broken out of that range. I think we've taken out the highs. I think it's another leg of the bull market. I don't think there's going to be any significant pullbacks from here. I mean, there'll be pullbacks, but I don't think they're going to be very significant. I think if you're waiting for a big drop to buy gold, you're going to wait a long time. And when you finally get it, I think it's going to drop from a much higher price than it is if you just bought it right now.
The U.S. dollar is dead. And when it's got about 5 more years, don't get me wrong, it's still a strong currency. But gold will get stronger, so will silver, so will Bitcoin. Because of this here is the school teachers, our governments, the Treasury, Wall Street, and the banking system, the Federal Reserve Bank, are ripping us off.
Now, are we on our way to seeing the destruction of the U.S. dollar?
Well, we've been on our way to the destruction of the dollar for a long time. In fact, it's taking a lot longer than a lot of people might have thought, myself included. So we've been able to keep this thing going. It's a much bigger bubble. But yes, I mean, if you could read the writing on the wall, it's quite clear what's going on. Most people are in denial, but those who aren't are preparing. And even if you prepare too early, that's fine, because it's much better than preparing too late, which means you're not prepared at all. But I think now it's not just the dollar severing its ties to gold. It's going to be the world severing its ties to the dollar. The world is going to go off the dollar standard and back on the gold standard. And I think that this is going to be a more precipitous drop in the dollar's value than it was in the 70s. And so we can see something equally as impressive in the price of gold.
But you're also really heavily invested in some of the stalwarts, the likes of gold and the like. So tell somebody, what some of the strategy could be when you look at a lot of different asset classes, because we know that you've kind of got to have your finger in a few pies.
I always recommend to invest in what you love. I love real estate. I love gold and silver. I've started a gold mine, a silver mine, taking them public on the Toronto Stock Exchange. and I just love oil. So I'm only investing in what I love. I love being an entrepreneur, and I really never had a job. So I'm just doing what I love. If you love stocks, invest in stocks. If you don't love stocks, invest in something else, you know. But I like gold because gold is God's money. You know, gold and silver have been here since the earth was formed, and it'll be here long after we're all gone. So gold will always be here no matter what the markets are doing. So that's why my foundation is gold, the second layer is real estate, and the third level is intellectual property. I have patents and things like this that's my wealth.